new moon solar eclipse, but also Mars is changing signs this week. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, although truthfully, that's a whole lot to pack into one particular show. And actually, there we go. My We've got some computer things going on today. Sorry, I'm laughing, but lots of input into my mind. I should be able to handle that, but we'll see. In any case, lots going on this week. And maybe, in fact, what's going on right now is very indicative because, truthfully, even if it was just that solar eclipse going on this week, that would be a pretty big deal, right? And then we've got the fact that Mars changed signs this morning in the Western system. It moved into Cancer. But the thing that's going on today, which I will admit is kind of, I don't know, phenomenal is probably too big of a word. But if you looked at an astrology calendar, or if you looked at something that told you the different combinations and aspects of planets, literally you could hardly fit them on the sheet because literally the moon today, when it entered Leo late last night, actually very early morning, shortly after Mars changed signs, it went into the moon went into Leo. And today it is connecting with 7 different planets. Now that's a whole lot. I mean, just think in your own life. Let's say you've got an agenda and you're going out to breakfast, or maybe you're meeting somebody in the afternoon for something, but you probably wouldn't have a breakfast meeting and then go for coffee with somebody in mid-morning and then go out to lunch and then do something else in the afternoon. I mean, depending on your lifestyle and maybe if you're in business, maybe you would have that many meetings. But today, that moon is just bouncing around, just talking to 7 different planets. So I would say if you think it feels a little crazy today, or just a little like, wow, the energy just keeps changing, that is exactly what's going on. But the other thing that I would say is instead of trying to literally separate out all those energies, all you need to do is just think a little bit about, or just be the observer. Like, what are your emotions? What are your feelings? And you don't necessarily have to understand it with your mind. But I would suggest just, if things feel a little crazy, just go, it's that moon. It's making all those connections. And all those little connections are generating, you might say, energy that's being reflected into the cosmos. So that's what's going on today. And I find that particularly interesting because as we lead up to this eclipse tomorrow, which will be Wednesday the 12th, usually we could have counted on this being relatively quiet because it's the end of the lunar cycle. And a lot of times, things are just they're either quiet or we're reflective or introspective. But you know what? That's just not what the cosmos had in store this particular time. Now, I am going to make a few comments about the eclipses or what you might expect with an eclipse. And then Mo is going to have a lot to say about that. And like I said, we probably will talk a little bit about Mars and Cancer, depending on where Mo wants to go today. But if we don't really touch base too much with Mars and Cancer, remember, you can always go to Mark's Power Peak. And you can read the write-up that I did in my column. And specifically, if you look at the daily for Tuesday, you're going to see what I was telling you about Mars and Cancer. But the other thing is, you just go with the flow. Just go with what your feelings are. And just know that in many, many ways, you are in the right place at the right time because this life is a classroom. You're not going to miss out. You're not going to not find what you need. You just need to stay awake. You just need to pay attention. So what I would say about eclipses, psychologically, they often seem like a time when time is speeding up. And I feel like in my life and what I've seen in my clients and my family, they tend to be surrounded by actions or decisions. Like it kind of precipitates something coming to a head. And it seems like oftentimes people or information seemingly just kind of get dropped into your life. And I've already noticed that, like several things have happened this weekend because it's not just the day of the eclipse, but this weekend, several things happened that were out of the ordinary. And I thought, okay, I'm going to pay attention to this. this could be important. But on the other hand, I'm not going to go crazy trying to analyze it. I'm just going to say it happened. So, what can I learn in my classroom, good or bad? Nothing here for me. I'm really trying to learn to see that. It's not good or bad. It's a lesson, it's something that I can learn. So, with the eclipses, I just think that kind of thing happens more. Like people call you up, somebody you haven't thought about in years either contacts you, or maybe you have a dream about them, or somehow they come into your consciousness, you know. And I feel like eclipses can really feel like we're walking in moonlight or twilight or in the shadows, or maybe it feels more like a bridge between the material and the spiritual world. This connection between what we think of as reality and what we think of as, is this magic? Is this not reality? Is it the other side of our lives? What is it? And so I think maybe that's what it feels like too, to be in those eclipses and just stand in that twilight moment of those things connected. So just remember, lots of things are going on. And if you choose to, pay attention to them. Just see what happens for you. Okay, and so I'm just going to curtail it right here and let Mo come on and say, and just ask him what he is interested in. But I also would invite you, please join us over on YouTube in the chat room. There again, the address is, Everyday Astrology with C.A. Brooks. So come find me over there. And then you can join us in the chat room. And I see people there. Hey, James and Leslie, thank you. And me, Jane, thank you for being there. And I'll check back over there later. But welcome to Mo Abdelbaki. How is the amazing Mo Abdelbaki?
I feel pretty good. Thank you, CA. How are you?
Well, I think I'm a little frazzled. In fact, I was kind of thinking it's funny. My dog, my little Tucker, I sometimes laugh because he will sleep in, and I mean, I'm up and I'll go, hey, are you getting up? And, he's only 5 and he's always done this ever since he was a puppy. Now, I do take some responsibility because a lot of times I'm up until about 2:00 in the morning. So I wouldn't expect him to be bouncing out of bed. But anyway, last night or this morning, he wanted up a little after 4:00.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, really? I mean, really? We've hardly been in bed 3 hours, And so I said, okay. And he went charging into the backyard barking. So I think he heard something outside, and that's why he wanted to go out. But in any case, I also thought to myself, as an astrologer, I go, okay, Mars moved. The moon is moving. It's starting to make all these connections. And, here's little Tucker just going, hey, I'm up and ready for this,
Yeah. Wow.
Whereas
our cocoa bean is an early riser. So.
Oh, well, and, mostly my dogs have been too. I'm not used to a dog that goes, I think I'll sleep it. I am not.
Well, she gets up early and then she goes back to sleep,
Well, so. Of course. What? Dogs sleep 18 hours a day or something. So
at least.
Yeah. But in any case, I thought Tucker was pretty much responding to lots of energetics this morning and very much onto, hey, something's in the backyard. I got to go figure it out.
Oh, yeah.
Which, of course, I don't want him figuring it out because it could be a coyote.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But, I could tell he was not going to stop until I let him out. He wasn't going to go back to sleep.
No, they never do go back to sleep until they're in your chair.
Yes.
Yes. It's like, come on, get out of my chair. No.
You know what?
Dad,
that's exactly it. He has taken over the 2 really comfortable chairs in the house.
Yeah.
They're his now, but and not really. I often make him get up. I'm like, really? Come on.
Oh, I absolutely do. And I, come on, move, and she doesn't, but I get her up.
I bribe. I
do
care.
that too.
I have a little treat and I put it over on an ottoman because I know he'll jump on the ottoman to get it.
Yeah.
And he knows what I'm doing, but I'm going, okay, if you move out of the chair, you get a little snack.
So, yeah, I hold it right in front of her nose and she just lifts an eye and looks at me like, Really? Is this supposed to sway me? You know,
Well,
I love them.
yeah, he's very food motivated. So he'll like, okay. And not to
Oh
mention, the
man.
ottoman is really comfortable. I mean,
Hmm.
I've got this great ottoman and I've even put two blankets on top of it. So he's
Oh,
very comfortable up there.
I'd go there. That sounds
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's very comfortable stretching out on the ottoman. So he's not suffering. But
Yeah, not at all.
what's on your mind? What would you like to talk about? And I do think the Mars and Cancer is interesting. I know in the Vedic system it's not there yet, but just because of the very different kind of nature between aggressive, assertive, warrior, not Aries, Mars, and then moving into this very domesticated and yet cardinal sign.
Right. Well, it's interesting because the moon rules Cancer.
Right.
And yet the moon goes through all the signs every month.
Hmm.
So I always think of the moon as kind of an ambassador. It has to be able to get along with just about everybody, and
That's
it has
right.
to go into everybody's house every month, and stay the night, a couple
Yeah.
of 3 nights, and I always wonder, does it get along? Does it use up all the soap? What do we
Yeah.
do in that house every week?
Yeah. Yeah.
And is it a good guest, or do they always look forward to it, or is it like, oh God, here comes the moon again? And but when Mars comes along, I think Mars is kind of can be, I mean, Mars is can be a bully. Mars can be okay. I mean, when Mars is in your house, you know that no one is necessarily going to come in and bully you, because Mars
Hmm.
is the consummate bully if Mars wants to be.
Uh-huh.
But Mars is going to take care of things. At least one would think so. So Mars is hot. And I don't mean that in a hubba hubba sort of way. I mean, Mars boils. Mars
Yes.
is rusty. Mars is crusty. I think Mars smells a bit of sweat. And
It's
if
all
you
that
say
hard
Mars,
work.
yeah, you say Mars. After dinner we've got a shower. If you'd like to use it, Mars would go, I don't need a shower. What are you selling me that for?
Hmm.
So Mars in Cancer. Um, I don't know. Let's see. I mean, Cancer is. I always think of Cancer as being rather quiet, um, pretty, luxurious, I think,
Hmm. Hmm.
opulent. Um, I mean, Cancerians, I think, take care of their stuff. They like pretty things. Um, they take care of. I mean, they like new stuff and faddish things. Would you agree with that?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and they like to show it off. I think, at least in my opinion. I don't want to get myself in trouble here,
Hmm.
but and when Mars comes in, I think Mars just kind of drops his armor everywhere. Um, and has so I don't know. I think that Mars in Cancer, and of course the moon is so beautiful, and it's not just a blasted tower. It's
Oh, I
so
don't think
that
I've ever heard that, Mo.
yeah, the tower card is based upon um, the story of Saint Barbara, who was an Egyptian martyr.
Hmm.
And do you know that story?
Yes, because I've heard you tell that story.
Yeah. And
But yeah, go
so,
ahead and you can tell that
okay,
quickly.
yeah. For those of you who don't know the story, Barbara was a young Egyptian girl who was a pagan, and I've always wondered, a pagan of what? But that's just the story anyway. I mean, was she ancient Egyptian? It's never been that clear to me. But
Hmm.
anyway, she wasn't a pagan. She'd become Christianized. She'd become a Christian. And so her father wanted her to marry this young guy who was part of another oh, kingdom or whatever, those stories. And she said, no, he's not a Christian. I'm not going to marry him. Besides, I've given my life to Christ. And he said, you're marrying this guy because I need to form an alliance with his father. And she said, no. And, he said, yes, you're going to do that. And until you marry this guy, I'm going to shut you up in this tower. Now, I think Rapunzel, all sorts of stories. And I think
Right.
that's where these stories kind of came from.
Yeah.
So he puts her up in his tower with her nuns, and that's what they were. They became nuns, and um, shuts her up in there. And time is running out, and he thinks she's going to, submit. Well, Barbara doesn't submit. And so he gets up there and he's furious because she's going to ruin this alliance. And, back then marriages were about this sort of thing, arranged marriages. No one married for love,
Yes.
but she has this love for, blah, blah, blah. So he goes up there and he says, if you don't do this, I will kill you. And she says, go ahead. So he pulls out his sword and he cuts her head off in this tower. Terrible thing to do. Yeah, horrible thing. And the clouds come in, and God smites him and the tower and blasts it with this kaboom. This big kaboom, and that's that. The tower has been blasted, and that's the story of the tower in Tarot. And Tarot had to be very careful back then because it was actually a gambling game, and the church didn't like such things. So they had to do what the major arcana was a series of like baseball cards, but instead of Mickey Mantle and Roger Koufax, I'm sorry, Sandy Koufax, and so on and so forth, they had saint cards, that sort of thing. And every card of the major arcana came out of either the Bible as a Bible, a story of the Bible, or a saint.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one without exception.
Yeah.
And I did a whole show about that, a couple of shows actually, about the Rider-Waite deck and how Pamela Coleman Smith took them, and Martha Edward Waite took them pretty much directly out of that. Which was actually from the Golden Dawn, blah, blah, blah. And so that's that. But anyway, so that's Mars. That was attributed to the card of Mars, the planet of Mars. And so we look at that as Mars being sort of that violent aspect of the vengeance of deity, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I suppose Zeus used it, but Zeus used a lightning bolt. Mars was never looked upon as being very intelligent in the stories of Greek mythology. He wasn't that smart for the most part.
Right. He was a blunt instrument, as they say.
Exactly. Yeah. He went into battle.
Not with the finesse. Yes.
No. I mean, his thing was he never went into battle without his two friends, Deimos and Phobos, fear and panic, which are his two, the planet Mars's two moons, right? I love that. Deimos and Phobos. What genius. I mean, you look at the mythology of our ancestors, and there is such genius behind it, I think, I just think there's something really quite remarkable about that. Like Odin's two ravens, they were ravens, Deimos and Phobos. And Odin's two ravens were Hugin and Munin, which mean thought and memory. I just love that.
Thought and memory. Okay.
Thought and memory, Hugin and Munin. And that just fascinates me. For example, I also think this is incredible that Odin was a one-eyed god. And the ancient Egyptian god Thoth, also his real name was Jehuti, but they just, that was too complicated. So let's call him Thoth, you know. So, but he was also a one-eyed god. And these two one-eyed gods invented writing. And I find that really quite fascinating, because writing is a two-dimensional thing. And yet it's in this two dimensions that something comes quite alive. And that's that it is a two-dimensional art, but when you have one eye, you can only have two dimensions, right?
Yes. Although, okay,
Yeah.
I want you to explain, why do you consider writing a two-dimensional art? What?
Because you can't, with one eye, you have only two dimensions, and it only exists in two dimensions,
Okay.
right? In other words, you're writing in two dimensions, not a three-dimensional art.
Right. Okay. All right.
Right.
I get what you're saying. I
Does
didn't
that make
know if
sense?
you were talking it more metaphysically, like the two dimensions were,
Oh no, no, it's just
okay.
it's
All
not a
right.
three-dimensional art. We don't
Right.
really have three dimensions until we have synthetic projective geometry in the Renaissance,
Oh my
right?
gosh. Yes.
Sorry.
No, I'm just laughing. Geometry was never my strong suit, although that's ironic since I'm an astrologer, because so
Yeah,
much
well,
of it is geometry. But
I didn't get
it was the
into it.
language. It's the
Well,
language
I
of
didn't
it.
get
That's
into
why I'm laughing.
synthetic projective geometry until Crowley, and that's because um, Frida Harris got into it in drawing his deck. And she got into it through a lady named Olive Witcher and George Kaufman, and I mean, just really remarkable stuff. So,
Yeah.
for example, in her six of swords, science, the card called
Mhm.
Science, there's all these lines in that, but it's all one line. And when you
Mhm.
realize that, you go, "Oh my God!" But
Yeah.
it's one line in time, one line in movement, and you just think, "Oh, brilliant, brilliant." Anyway, I'm sorry. So let's get
No,
back to
that's okay.
Mars.
Well, yes, and this is what I intrigues me about Mars and Cancer. I very much, because this has been my experience with people with Cancer suns or lots of Cancer energy. And I have my Mars in Aries. So as you can imagine, talk about a blunt instrument. I
Yeah,
just want to go forward. And in fact, I want to refer to Donna in the chat room is talking about narrowly escaping, the fires in eastern Washington. And I'm so glad that you're safe, Donna. But
yeah,
what that makes me think is that's it. Mars is fire, and fire is a blunt instrument. It
yeah.
can be channeled to keep our homes warm. It can be channeled in a multitude of ways for positive. But it's a blunt instrument that if you do not exert some control or provide an appropriate channel, it's destructive, just like the tower, right?
Right,
And so
right.
cancer, this is my experience with cancer, and I've talked about this a lot, and I just had to learn it experientially, that cancer, like the crab, it moves from side to side. And so when a cancer wants you to do something, or they're trying to convince you of something, or they're leading you somewhere, they're not going to lead you in a straight line. They're
Right.
going to go to the left and they're going to go to the right, or they're going to go over here and then they're going to go over there. And I find myself left going, okay, where's this going? Because my Mars in Aries says, can't we just draw a straight line to the target? But
Right.
that's not the way Cancer does it. And I would also say, in their defense, most of the time, if a Cancer told me what their target was, I'd say no. And so they're pretty smart to lead me in this circuitous route that by
Hmm.
the time we get there, I go, okay, I get this. I understand this, because I would have wanted to follow a straight line, but I would have said no to the goal in the first place.
Right.
And so that's the thing that I find challenging with Mars and Cancer is that you may not reach goals by just attacking it straight on like the blunt instrument.
Right.
That's not the way the Cancer does it. And yet this is still this phenomenal, motivational, inspirational energy. And in fact, I was looking up some people that had Mars in Cancer, and I find it interesting what they're known for. Like Anne Morrow Lindbergh, she's
Mm.
it. One of the things she's best known for is her book Gifts from the Sea. And if
Hmm.
you've ever read that book, I'm not going to say it's circuitous, but it's like the waves coming to the shore, just presenting these ideas and how life moves. And it moves in this the waves coming in, the tides going out, the lunar cycles. She doesn't say lunar cycles, but the fact that she would then become very well known for a book, Gifts from the Sea. And then there's
Hmm.
also Michael Phelps, who won,
Uh-huh.
I mean, Lord, how many is it? Like a couple, it's in the 20s, I think, how many different gold medals and Olympic medals he won for swimming,
Right.
So you don't look at Mars in Cancer and just go, okay, I can't go straight to my goals, or this is not what I'm going to accomplish something. You have
Right.
to adapt maybe what the goals are. Like maybe you do say, okay, this is about home, this is about family, this is about something else in my life, or something very Cancerian, and I need to maybe adjust how I think it's going to happen, or adjust my pace. But like I said, as a person with Mars and Aries, I'm just like, oh my God, just tell me what
Well,
you want, Mo.
and you could also say that Michael Phelps was a water warrior because of
Mm-hmm.
that. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, he's like an Aquaman or something, a fish man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And in fact, I have some quotes from him, and I'll say one at the end of the show. But how many times did he say something like, I'm at home in the water? That's where I
Oh,
always
yeah.
want to be. That's my
Well,
home. That's where
I
I feel
heard them say that
natural.
his physiology is actually made for what he does. You know,
Yes.
he's got like really tall and thin and you know weird and stuff.
Well, he does. If you look at his whole torso and the length of his arms, yeah, he is Aquaman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's a good example, or at least he's something that we can look towards Mars and Cancer and kind of understand how do you take this incredible energy, motivation, inspiration, and action and apply it to something? Well, look at what
Yeah.
he applied it to. But it wasn't like he was some, you know, like I said, I think it would be a mistake to just say, "Oh, well, Mars in Cancer, that's fire and water, and they're going to struggle and have a really hard time." Sometimes
No,
we do that. We just kind of, it's kind of a cop out. Let's put it that way.
I always figure that's sort of stereotyping is like a form of
Mhm.
mafia. You
Oh,
know,
and
I,
why do you
I
say
don't
mafia?
I don't like that. It's like people form these. I don't mafia because it's a closed society.
Oh, yes, yes.
I hate that stereotyping.
Hmm.
Um, it really, really upsets me because it's pigeonholing and it's stereotyping, and people just go, "Hey, I hate that way of thinking." He's a Taurus, so he's this way, he's that way, and anything he says is flattery. And he says something, it's because he's trying to butter you up and get something out of you. I hate that.
Yeah.
It really upsets me. Um, I've heard that before, you know.
Hmm. And yet, don't you think in some ways that's the way we learn, especially maybe something like astrology? We have to hang on to the stereotypes and then learn to broaden them into what they really mean.
You see,
Because it's so much
I
more than what you're
guess,
talking about.
but boy, I just rebel against it, CA,
Yes, I
because
know. I
it's
know, I do too.
so irritating to me that those are the things because some people never get beyond it.
Well,
you know
yeah,
oh
but that,
she's a Scorpio, you know what that means. Take her
yeah,
out on a date, you
yeah.
know what that means. It's like, no, I don't know. I mean, I hope that's what it means, but I don't. I mean, I hate
Well,
that stuff.
and of course, what is so true is it depends on our own charts.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I think the reason maybe I even try to figure out what is the struggle with Mars and Cancer is because how it affects my chart. I
Yeah.
know that I'm going to have to adapt my style. So then looking at what does that mean? And by the way, it's not that I don't like Mars and Cancer. In fact, I really do. I feel like when Mars is in Cancer is when, I feel like it's one of the times when Home Depot and Lowe's and all those home improvement stores do really great. It's finally, oh, I'm going to do this to the backyard, or I'm going to take care of this, or maybe I'm going to reestablish this relationship with family. It's a wonderful time.
Yeah.
So there
Yeah.
again, it's it kind of goes back to, do you look at life as things happening to you, or do you look at every single thing as a possibility, as a classroom?
Right.
Ooh, what am I going to learn in this science experiment?
Well, you can look at a chart. I mean, my Vedic chart, and I think my regular chart probably has the same thing, but my Western chart. But for example, I have Mars in my second house, right?
Hmm.
And that predicts that I would have a serious problem with my right eye. And sure enough, I have a terrible scar in my right eye and my cornea,
Oh,
and got it when I was about 5 years old in California. And to this day, whenever I have an eye exam, the doctor will say, "My goodness, where did you get that scar on your?" And so it's there, and you say, "Wow, that's kind of amazing that my chart would show that." I was
right.
born with that, and so
Oh,
it happened.
yeah.
But does that, and it shows hearing loss, and I indeed have hearing loss. So astrology can show these things. Um, and that's Saturn in my 12th, and it shows, it predicts that there would be hearing loss. And sure enough, I have hearing loss, but that rock concert in 1981 helped that along,
Yeah.
and other things as well. But
If that isn't the truth.
yeah, and the headphones and so on. But and also my grandmother, my dad's mom, but because she wore hearing aid from the time she was a young girl. But who knows? But I'm just saying it all comes together.
Hmm.
And I don't like the stereotypes, even though sometimes they work. You know,
Right.
I
Right.
like I like people. I wish that people who are astrologers would keep an open mind, and I just think it's important. The same is true with tarot. I
Hmm.
I really rebel against a lot of the way people read the cards. Now it's up to them;
Hmm.
they're the ones doing the readings, but I don't think they do a service when they read like the way they read.
Yeah,
You
that,
know.
well, and in fact, I'll tell you, this is my natural curiosity though. I continue to buy tarot decks. And, just if something intrigues me, like I think I'm going to like the picture, or I think I'm going to like the author. But, many of them, I'll use them for a month or two and then I give them away because I
Yeah.
recognize I've gotten what I wanted from them. But one of the things I find fascinating about doing that is that oftentimes when I read, and of course the picture, I do like the pictures. I'll buy a deck just for the pictures. But I think
Hmm.
mostly I want also what they're saying about the card. Because I realize they may say one thing that I had never thought about, never considered about that particular card. And it fits. And so I just feel like it really helps me continue to grow and increase in my understanding
Ah, that's
of the
interesting.
tarot. And sometimes it is just because they've used a symbol that it's like, oh my God, why did they choose that? And it's so intriguing, and or the experiences they've had. And yet if I ask any other person, if I called you up and said, hey, would you ever interpret the Six of Swords that way, you probably would say no. And
I
yet
might. I might
Yeah, I
know.
mean, I'm
I
just
would try to
saying,
be more open-minded, although I am a snob, I
well,
guess. I don't
yeah,
know.
that probably wasn't a good example. I think my point is somebody who wanted to stick to what they thought the meaning of the card was might go, oh, no, no, that's not what the card means. And it's like, but you know what? We have, I mean, that's why I love the tarot. It's interactive. It's
Well,
like a person.
that's the key. It
It's
is
a person
interactive.
talking to me. And it's sort of like, oh my God, in this particular, like, in fact, I mean, I've told you this before. In one particular deck that I have, one of the cards, I pulled it for a woman who was really struggling in a relationship with a guy. And I pulled the card. And quite honestly, I'm not going to say the card had nothing to do with that, but there was a symbol on that card that I had never seen in the card before. And I use the cards all the time. And when I saw it, I said, he's just not that into you.
Mm.
And she's like,
No, I get
okay,
it.
thank you. And, I told that to other people, and they'll go, how did you ever get that? And I'll show them. I'll go, see this? That's how I got it. And
Wow.
it was like, but to this day, I wouldn't pull that card out of another deck and give somebody the same answer. It was
Wow.
literally that card in that moment in that deck.
You see, that's the power of intuition, and that's what
Mm-hmm.
makes it what it is, CA.
Mm-hmm.
I have similar stories. I was doing a reading once at the 12th house when I
Mm-hmm.
worked there, and I, a man was sitting across from me. I pulled the art card in the Crowley deck, and there on the I was I had noticed it, but it never meant anything to me. On the crucible, in front of the artist there, there's a skull,
Yeah.
and and it deals with the concept of the death's head, the caput mortem, and I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at it, and I said to him, "What do you have to do with death?" And he said, "I'm a mortician."
Oh my gosh.
And I almost fell off my chair, and I had to pretend like I did it every day. It's like, oh,
Right.
that's of
Right.
course you are. Well, I
Yeah.
say,
Right.
you know. There was another time when I was doing a reading and I pulled the Emperor card for someone, and I was just like I could hear bees buzzing, and I said, "Are you by any chance a beekeeper?" And I thought the person was gonna also just freak out completely. They said, "How could you know that?" And I said, "Oh, well, it's what I do." But in fact, I wanted to jump up and kick my heels and, you know, but it's exactly happened to be. And you go, how does this work? How does this work? And
Right.
the answer is, I have no idea how this works.
Yeah.
But that's what we do.
Yes.
And,
And you're
and
right.
that's
It's intuition. And
right.
and so if something strikes you in that moment, like even the way somebody else has read the card, or like I say, just one line in a book, then it's worth putting into your briefcase or whatever you want to say. It putting it in that library
Yeah.
of meanings for those cards. Yeah.
And that's why I study everything I can. And that's why I
Yes.
would never say to someone, don't buy every deck you want. Don't read every book you want. That's why I don't ballyhoo or poop. That's why I don't poo-poo anything. You
Right.
see,
Yes.
I learned something brand new about the Crowley deck, which I have been studying since 1976. You see, the brand new last week that I had never known before, and the guy got it out of the book, and I've read the
Oh
book three
wow.
times a year since then, and
Yeah.
it's because I just glossed over it, and I didn't feel like a fool. I thanked him. I said,
Hmm.
"You have taught an old dog a new trick," you
Yes.
know. And I was grateful for it because it solved a puzzle that I've never been able to solve. And it was right in front of my eyes the whole time, but because I just ignored it, which I can do, and it solved a very big puzzle for me with the moon card, you know,
Mm.
and something that I just could not figure out. but he also made some wrong inferences, and I decided not to correct him because I didn't think he would appreciate it at all.
Hmm.
Um, but you go, okay, this is wild stuff, you
It
know.
is.
Um, and he did make wrong inferences about some elemental properties that were incorrect. That I know now. I understand it, because they couldn't be what he said they were. But
Hmm.
that's a different story.
Yeah.
But you go, I that's the point. We're always learning, and I love always learning. You
Hmm.
know,
Me too.
yeah, always learning. And
Yeah.
I think that's just the joy and the love of this stuff we do, CA, is that it never gets boring, it never gets old, and we always learn something brand new. I
Yes.
mean, yay.
Yes. Wonderful conversation. I'm so glad we went there.
Yeah.
But I recognize we only have a few minutes left, and we didn't even talk about the eclipse.
Oh, the eclipse. Let me tell
Yeah.
you
So,
something.
so yeah. What are your thoughts
I'm no
about the
longer afraid
eclipse?
of them. I was never
Good.
afraid of them. I don't think I would. If there was one that came right over my house, I would absolutely go out and look at it because I'm getting along in my years. I would say, fine, bring it on. You know,
Hmm.
if I'm gonna if I'm going to be crawled upon by demons, let it happen. But but I don't feel fear that. I realize something that I haven't ever really contemplated before. It's not that it's not that things come out that haven't been, they're always there. Do you know
Yes.
what I'm saying?
Yes.
They're always there. It's just that we don't realize it. During the eclipse, they become obvious.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Well, it does because, like I said, my experience is that messages come through, pieces of puzzles come through, and you're going, oh, how did I miss that before? And there again, it may be something that should have been totally obvious, but it's not. And maybe it is kind of when you're looking through a different lens, looking through a different light, you see things that you didn't see before.
I wanted to drive. My wife's sister lives in Wyoming,
Uh huh.
in Casper, where there was totality of the eclipse. We lived where it was 98%.
Uh huh.
We live where it's 90, where it was 98%. And I said, let's drive and stay with your sister for just an overnight so we can see the totality. And she didn't want to do it. It's a 5, 6 hour drive, but
Yeah.
she refused. And I wanted to see an eclipse in my lifetime, so we did not get to see it. So I don't hold it against her. She was in pain. She's in pain, and it would have been a grueling drive for her. But I'll never forgive her. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
That's Mars in Cancer, by the way,
Well,
um, because the Cancer is the crab,
yeah.
and
Retentive.
Mars
Yeah.
wants to pry open the shell to eat the flesh. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
um, and get to the soft flesh, regardless of the pain involved, and see the eclipse. So, but the thing is, Monument Valley, they close Monument Valley during an eclipse. Did you know that?
No. Why?
Yeah, because it's owned by the Navajo Nation
Oh.
and the Diné people. Um, they absolutely stop everything during a solar eclipse. Um, and I don't know if they do it for one that isn't really visible um, around here. They might. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if they
Mm-hmm.
do or not, but they really are very stringent upon that because their beliefs are quite powerful and
Yes.
I think pretty smart. I mean, if you believe in it, if you have a strong sense, I have in the past, as you well know,
Yeah.
um, I have followed many different because I do have certain understandings of some aspects. The Hindus certainly do,
Mm-hmm.
um, and yeah,
Yeah. Well, yeah. If in the United States, I don't think we're going to see any of that solar eclipse. Is that right?
yeah.
Yeah. It's
That
like
is correct.
parts of
Yeah.
Europe and yeah. But our chance will come. We've had them before.
Oh, we've
So,
had it, and think about it. We had it, and people watched it, and COVID hit, and anyway. Let's forget all that.
yes,
Okay.
yes, we'll talk about it another time. We need
Yeah.
to, I just want to, is there anything you want to announce? We've got about
I've got a
2
show
minutes.
tomorrow.
Oh,
I've
that's
done the
right,
major
3 o'clock.
arcana. I did the major arcana and the Rider Waite. Those are all recorded if you want to watch them any chance on my thing, Moe's Paisley Penny Arcade,
On
and where
YouTube.
yeah, on YouTube. And then I did the Crowley deck, showing that he had absolutely no regard for anything traditional. And now I'm doing my cards, my tarot deck, the major
Nice.
arcana. And I'm going to continue that tomorrow. So, other than that, I'm still alive.
Okay, great. Well, Mo, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
And I hope you enjoyed that eclipse tomorrow.
Oh, I definitely will. I'll be doing what I usually do, which is sitting around going,
Woo!
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. And everybody
Thank you
that
for
is,
having me.
oh, you are so welcome. We always bounce off each other pretty well. I like that. Mars and Aries, Okay. Thanks for joining me today, everybody, whether you're listening to this live or maybe you're catching this on YouTube later. Love that you can just always go back and listen to it at a time that's good for you. And thanks to our producer, Serena. I want you to stick around, though, because I'm going to be with Kelly Whetstone coming up next. Her show is Empowerment with Kelly Whetstone. You can find that on YouTube also. And we're going to be doing what we call the monthly meeting of the minds. And here's the quote to end the show today. This is Michael Phelps, Mars and Cancer. He said, I feel most at home in the water. I disappear. That's where I belong. I want to test my maximum and see how much I can do. And I want to change the world of swimming. See, Mars in Cancer. It's whatever you're attuned to. So, a wonderful thing to think about astrology. It's not these pat answers in tarot or astrology or I Ching or anything else. It's interactive and it's what you make it. So, this is CA signing out. You can find me for personal sessions on 12listen.com. Please feel free to request a scheduled call at a time that's good for you. I will be there as much as possible tomorrow when we are celebrating that new moon solar eclipse in Leo. So if you want to go check that out, I'll be there, like I said, most of the day. I'll take a few breaks because I do have a dog. He needs to spend some quality time in the yard. At least, yes, that's what he likes to do. So, but I will be there. And remember, you can always request a scheduled call. You can always do that any day of the week. Feel free to get online and do that. You have been listening to Everyday Astrology with my guest, Mo Abdelbaki, live streaming here on YouTube, where we really are changing the way that we listen to the world.